All right, everyone. Vladimir Putin contacted Donald Trump to thank him for stopping a terrorist attack over in Russia. And the lamestream media didn't like that very much. And if you look at the titles of the articles, if you just read the titles and you were pre-programmed to think that Trump and Putin were like bosom buddies, or Trump was like sucking Putin off or something, you would assume that the story has, you wouldn't check the source, you probably wouldn't even read most of the text. You just read the title and say, oh, Trump is working with Putin again, haha, more evidence of collusion. What it is actually routine data sharing that stopped a terrorist event, which I would think most people agree is a good thing. But most people, their minds won't be changed about Trump and think that this is a good thing because they'll just read the titles and take it from the yellow journalist fake news. Here's the thing. I think sane individuals, people who have common sense, people who, don't eat their own poo on a regular basis. I think we agree generally that it's good to have at least tolerably good relationships with the only other country with enough nukes to actually pose an existential threat to our existence. Like, if we got into a full nuclear exchange with China, we would survive. They wouldn't survive the encounter, we would. But if we get into one with Russia, we probably neither of us survive. We probably both get completely screwed, and there's really not much left. Meanwhile, New Zealand becomes the new world power because it happens to be a first world country in the southern hemisphere. And the other major powers, Argentina, Chile, and South Africa, because Australia would get hit by a few Chinese nukes at that point. Actually, at this point, Australia might become a Chinese vassal state. Yeah, that would be real fun. Yeah, what a wonderful world. Merry Christmas, everybody dies, and you won't be cold anymore. Because any survivors will be, but anyone that didn't, they all get vaporized or they get a hideous radiation burns. Oh, they're going to feel really good. Yeah, when you're puking up your own organs. This is apparently what the lamestream media wants, because they seem to think that it would be good for Trump not to even conduct normal diplomacy with Russia. See, they've prevented the U.S. from right now effectively talking to and working with Russia where we can talk and cooperate, because people have the view that the President of the United States, at any time he does talk about or to Russia, is in collusion with them. You've actually screwed up the diplomatic process. The media is so dishonest and so inept and thinks only about money to such a great, vast degree that they've actually attempted to poison the fragile relationship between the world's two major nuclear powers. That's what they've accomplished. Thank you for that, by the way. And Trump is absolutely right when he called out John McCain for trying to start a nuclear war, because McCain seems to think he should shut up about it too. Oh, screw the Russia. We want terrorism in Russia. Ha ha ha. Dead Ruskies. The Red Scare is still going. Cold War. Reds under the bed. Reds under the bed. He says before they drag him back off to the funny farm like they should have a long time ago. John McCain can barely even walk. And he's still representing the people of Arizona. I feel sorry for you if that's the face of Arizona. Aren't you a younger state relatively? Like the average age of someone in your state's barely in the 30s? Unlike here, I think it's 42. Isn't that a little bit sad? Who will shovel the sidewalks? Obviously, Vermont needs, lots of, it needs more migrant labor. Because there won't even be any kids left to shovel. Grandma will have to go out there with a flamethrower. That's the point we're going to get to in this fucking state. The Putin thanking Trump is normal. Trump trying to help through data sharing in a limited sense, say, hey, give him this data so they can stop this potential attack. It's a good thing. Look, the Russians have done it for us too. You remember the Tsarnaevs. You'll remember them as the successful attackers of the Boston Marathon that nonetheless were under constant FBI surveillance. The Russians were doing data sharing with the FBI. Told them 2 years ahead of time, hey, this dude's been radicalized in Chechnya. He's probably a threat. He's studying like explosives, other weird stuff. Keep an eye on him. And the FBI was openly, the Tsarnaevs were openly posting about, like, jihad and stuff on their, open in public on Facebook. Nobody did a damn thing about it. Nobody even, hauled him in for questioning. They didn't keep an eye on him. They said, screw Russian intel. It doesn't mean anything to us. When you ignore that intel sharing, it seems that bad things happened. Our intel agencies, in that sense, were inept at the time. We finally get our act together. get intel on a potential attack in Russia. It's been foiled. It's been thwarted. But there are people who want you to believe that Putin is such a gargantuan boogeyman that we shouldn't even be talking to the Russian state. I happen to disagree. Obama himself, 2012, what does he say? When little Mitt Romney comes out and suggests that Russia is our main foe on the world stage. Ha ha ha, says Obama, they're not an enemy. Look, the Cold War is over, Mitt. You know, not anymore, but it was at the time, I guess. They're not an enemy, they're just a competitor, says Obama. And the crowds cheer. Oh, Mitt Romney is so ignorant. So look at this old, white, outdated dude. Ha, he thinks it's still like the 70s. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Look, Reagan was like almost half a century ago. Ha ha, look at chic and swift-minded Obama. He's got the right idea. Fuck the Cold War. Let's work with the Russians. That was what his fans were like at the time. Move on a few years, like, less than half a decade later, to this election, and all of a sudden, because of the poison of the media, those same people now believe, Russia is our main foe. We need more nukes, we need wars, proxy wars, arm the rebels, arm the militants, save your Obama, save us from evil Trump who actually conducts diplomacy with this other state. That's so whacked out, dude. It's crazy. You're trying to start a nuclear war. So all the so-called liberals now, they sound like John McCain. Doesn't that worry them? I get they've got such cognitive dissonance, I guess it doesn't. They don't even notice. Some of these people don't even appear to notice who they sound like. They sound like George W. I guess they forgot what George W. was like. You know what? I almost wish that Jeb Bush had won the nomination and beaten Clinton. Because you get a third Bush term and he'd be a single termer, trust me. So that you could see how moronic the Bushes are, how corrupt and slimy and ballless they are. They don't know, what did W do on 9/11? He ran off into a bunker to talk to Daddy and to his vice president who was in charge the whole time and was the one really calling the shots. But, he had to wait for little W to show up to do the puppet signing ceremony on the start of the so-called war on terror. That's what the Bushes are like. And Obama was in denial that Russia was even anything beyond a competitor. Well, okay, let's take his word for it. And at the time, the Republicans were like, no, Obama's wrong, Russia's evil, Putin is an evil man. And now it's flipped completely. Now, the Republicans are being just as hypocritical. You now embrace the idea, oh yeah, Russia's pretty good, and they're bringing back sort of the moral traditionalism. Maybe they're more capitalist now than we are, arguably, at least in some areas. The press freedom and stuff is pretty bad over there. But, there's some good things about Russia. You thought he was the devil like a decade ago. Oh, he's the one, he's probably helping Saddam, he's probably helping Osama, and all this bullshit. That's what the world's like. Most people are opportunists and hypocrites. Like, you got a Sarsour who's an opportunist, or an Al Sharpton or something, a David Duke. And then you've got most of the lay partisans, they're just all hypocrites. Like, it's so easy to lead them. It's like, why haven't we had a dictator take over in the U.S. at this point? It's obvious that the majority of the population is very easily fooled. Well, that majority of the population could control the country if they were led by a dictator. Someone who had at least marginal control of the military too. They could easily take over the whole country and stay in there forever. They could be 10 times, they could be in there from cradle to grave. They could be dictator and then appoint some kid to reign. Then we're going to abolish the office of president. We're going to have kings again, because of my reasons. And they would be able to formulate an argument, I think, that would tie up both the left and right in the United States into knots and keep them from resisting. I really think that. It's rather scary considering the number of nuclear weapons in our arsenal. Now, isn't it? No. Yeah, actually, it's probably the only thing. Probably the intel agencies and the spy versus spy people keep on a sharp lookout out for anyone who does collude for that specific reason. Maybe if we didn't have an actual technical cold arms race that's still crawling along, maybe they'd take it less seriously and we'd be screwed by now. Maybe it saved us for some reason. No, I just think it's rather regrettable that the legacy media has managed to con half the population into thinking that normal diplomacy, a la what Obama was doing in the middle of his second term, before we had a real freezing in relations between the U.S. and Russia because of, the Democratic Party's bullshit mainly. It's rather regrettable that we've come to the point at which it appears that people who claim that we're the elite, we're the journalists, we're the ones with the PhDs and the master's degrees, we know everything, we rub elbows with the rich and powerful, so we know what we're talking about. So you know what you're talking about, you know all these wonderful things, and yet you know you have constant sex harassment problems, it seems, number one, can't keep it in your pants, use a lot of drugs, and you want to start a Cold War. That sounds sane to me. You are sane individuals. Clearly the epitome of rationalism and enlightenment in this otherwise dark age ruled by rubes. That's about all. Peace out.